to engage their children to improve the level of education, not only in schools, but also at home. Dapat po sigurong lakihan lalo natin ang pondo ng ating mag-aaral at Department of Education. Children who have no access to schools, children who are hungry going to schools, underpaid teachers, corruption at the department, corruption in government.
I think we regressed by a point. So again, distinguished gentlemen, I just want to point this out because I just really want to give credit to our learners and to our teachers. Despite not everyone had technology, despite the fact that there was no Wi-Fi, and we very well know that face-to-face classes are still the most effective, our learners and our teachers held that line. Nila quality education.
Okay. Thank you po, Mr.
Thank you, Franz.
Thank you, Honorable Castro.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to recognize Congressman Lawrence Defensor for his interpellation.
Congressman Lawrence Defensor is hereby recognized.
Good. Parang nagulat.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the sponsor yield?
Most definitely, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Defensor is one of the most respected members of this 19th Congress, and it is an honor to receive questions from such a distinguished gentleman.
I agree. The Honorable Distinguished Gentleman is now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Sponsor, thank you for raising the issues on the status and quality of our education here in the Philippines. Also, thank you for reminding us that DepEd has the largest allocation every year in the national budget. Do you recall the last OECD PISA survey results in 2018?
I recall the 2018 results, and the latest is the 2022 PISA results.
For the 2018 OECD PISA results, do you recall that out of the 79 countries surveyed, what was the rank of the Philippines for reading and comprehension?
Well, we were at the bottom part of that ranking.
That's correct, Mr. Speaker. We were number 79 in the 2018 OECD PISA survey. Considering that DepEd has the largest budget allocation since 2019, 2020, 2021, for the past 4 years, would the sponsor know what has DepEd done or has done differently to change the results of the 2018 OECD PISA results?
Yes. Thank you for that question, Honorable Gentleman. First, that PISA exam you're referring to was 2018. The last PISA exam we took was 2022. If we all recall, in the interim, during the middle of all those things, we had to go through the COVID-19 lockdowns. But despite that, there were reforms instituted at the beginning of that 2019, before the lockdown 2020. If you recall, under the K-12 curriculum, the requirement is about 15,000 plus competencies from K to 12. What the DepEd at the time did, led by the Secretary Briones, was to reduce the number of competencies from 15,000 plus to what they call the most essential competencies, about a little more than 5,000. To be honest with you, Honorable distinguished gentlemen, I still believe at that time that that was too much, and also I believe that was not enough, because it is not only the competencies that must be reduced, but also the subjects. Unfortunately, COVID-19 dawned upon us. There were other more pressing problems that one had to take care of, especially face-to-face, Zoom, learning modules, the health of our teachers, the health of our learners, parents. So the adjustments, I think, could not be fully, they could not fully implement all the reforms they wanted to do. Then a 2022 exam happened. That was still under the Briones administration of the DepEd. The results are already out. We all expected that we would have a worse than 2018 results. Our learners, our teachers, despite the handicap, despite the lockdowns, despite Wi-Fi not being present, in a way held the line. We did not regress too much. Now comes the new administration, the Marcos administration. Under the Marcos administration, not only did they lessen the competencies, but for K-3, K-3 or K-6? K-3 muna. K-3, they will reduce the number of subjects. There will only be 5 subjects for K-3, focusing on functional literacy, meaning reading comprehension, and also mathematics, age appropriate, including what we passed in the last Congress, the reinstitution of the GMRC.
Thank you for the information, Mr. Speaker. It's very helpful for the members of Congress to be aware of what DepEd has done. May I know from the sponsor, if our results in 2018, we were the last, and the results for 2022 has not increased significantly. May I know if the sponsor has any data, if other countries have progressed or have stayed stagnant despite the COVID-19 pandemic. Yes. Because while we accept the burdens put upon our educational system by COVID-19, did the other countries surveyed by OECD have the same stagnant results, or it's just the Philippines?
Well, thank you again for the question, honorable gentleman. First of all, much to be desired pa rin for our education system. But for most of the countries, they either stagnated or regressed.
What's our result for 2022 for reading and comprehension? Still last?
We were still within the range of the bottom, but not the last.
Can we request the sponsor if they could extract data from other countries in terms of their results, if the top or the bottom 10 has moved, or if the bottom 20 has moved while we remain stagnant? Mr. Speaker, may I know from the sponsor that while we accept the challenges faced by our education system, will the sponsor agree with me that despite these challenges, our improvement in the education sector cannot wait?
I fully agree with that. And honorable gentleman, could I just put on record that the 2018 results and the 2022 results, again, compared to the other countries, much is to be desired. I think the potential of the Filipino learner was not at all maximized. But just comparing the results of Filipino learners in 2018 and 2022, in reading, we increased by 2 points. In mathematics, almost the same. And then in science, I think we regressed by a point. So again, distinguished gentlemen, I just want to point this out because I just really want to give credit to our learners and to our teachers. Despite that not everyone had technology, despite the fact that there was no Wi-Fi, and we very well know that face-to-face classes are still the most effective, our learners and our teachers held that line. Of course, much is still to be desired compared to the other countries. We will provide the gentleman with specific data, but again, the results of most of the other countries who also took part in the PISA 2022 and 2018 showed that they either just held the line or they regressed.
Thank you, Mr. Sponsor. While we are bringing up and stressing up the issues of our education system, I think it's a good time to raise a suggestion coming from one of my most favorite books, written in 2012, entitled Why Nations Fail. And in that book, may I quote very briefly, that the low education level of poor countries is caused by economic institutions that fail to create incentives for parents to educate their children, and by political institutions that fail to induce the government to build, finance, and support schools and the wishes of parents and children. I think we also have to go back to what incentivizes parents to continue or to engage their children to improve the level of education, not only in schools, but also at home. Dapat po sigurong lakihan lalo natin ang pondo ng ating mag-aaral at Department of Education. Children who have no access to schools, children who are hungry going to schools, underpaid teachers, corruption at the department, corruption in government. These are broad problems that we have to address in Congress, since the money used for children, teachers, and schools come from the legislator. I hope that this will be a challenge that we can exercise our oversight even more when it comes to the utilization of funds in the education sector. Mr. Speaker, will the sponsor agree with me that the level of education is tied to the free exercise of democracy?
Yes.
That's right. The more educated our children and our people are, the better the choices they make in choosing leaders who will run this country. Does
That
the
is
sponsor
correct.
agree with me?
That is correct, distinguished gentleman.
Thank you. I'm happy to have this small discussion with the honorable sponsor, my favorite chairman in the House of Representatives. And it brings to light my thrust for better education. I wrote an article for the Inquirer last 2020 entitled Literacy for Democracy, and I hope we can find many ways to improve our ranking, not only in PISA, but improve the total quality of education of our children, and it begins with reading and writing. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Sponsor.
Thank you, honorable gentleman. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Congressman Defensor. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, there being no further
Kung meron man kayong mga komento tungkol sa mga isyong ito, maaari kayong magbigay ng mga reaksyon sa comment section na makikita sa ibaba ng bidyong ito. Maraming salamat, at kung ikaw ay interesado ng mga bidyong tulad nito, mangyaring suportahan ang channel na ito sa pamamagitan ng pagpindot ng like, pag-share ng mga video, at kung bago ka pa lang sa channel na ito, please subscribe sa channel na ito at pindutin ang notification bell at piliin ang all upang maabisuhan ka para sa mga paparating pang mga videos.